Yeah, just a quick review of the 7-minute rotator cuff solution. A complete program to prevent and rehabilitate rotator cuff injuries. Not many good rotator cuff books around, really. I see some of the Kindle ones, where they kind of put them out and, they're like 40 pages long and, they just list a few exercises. I don't know. There just really aren't that many good ones. This is one that's very popular, written by Horrigan, a chiropractor, and Jerry Robinson. I'm going to go over the book briefly. Basically, there's two main issues I have with this book. Not that it's worthless or anything, because there are some good exercises in it. But my first issue, it was published in 1991. Okay, so that's over 32 years ago. Rotator cuff rehabilitation has come a long way since then. They've added other exercises that we know are good and safer for rotator cuff rehabilitation. Matter of fact, one of the authors, Horrigan, did a study on one exercise in particular, and it was done where they actually looked at the person under MRI. They took MRI pictures as they did the rotator cuff exercise. And just to see if did it really activate, the rotator cuff, and in specific muscles, and how effective it was. And that one isn't even in this book. So, like I say, it has evolved since then. Not that you could do these exercises and they're worthless and they wouldn't ever help you, but I think there are just better ones and safer ones that you can do now. The only other issue I have with this book, it says the 7-minute rotator cuff solution. Maybe if the book ends up, we'll only go over briefly. It's in two different sections. Part one is like theory. Basically, it goes over stuff like, here's basic stuff like the rotator cuff, pictures, what does it do? This book is loaded with pictures, by the way, which I really like. How does the rotator cuff work? Like I said, what the rotator cuff does, how does it do, what goes wrong with the rotator cuff? So that kind of stuff. Kind of like a lot of information about the rotator cuff. From 1991. Part two is the program. So basically, then it'll go in and it'll show you each of the exercises, for the program. So the book's not laid out too badly, actually. 75, I think. So here we got the theory in section one, section one. Section two then will go into the actual exercise routines. And the first part of that section is the exercises, so it shows you how to do them. And if you look at these routines, though, there's 6 different levels, which is fine. So there's something for everyone. You start at the first level, okay, and you do one set of, a couple exercises. Okay, well you can do that in under 7 minutes. But by the time you get to these other levels, like level 5 and 6, 3 sets, 2 sets, 1 rep, 5 to 10 seconds. Look at the last level, 3 sets, that's 6, that's 8 sets, and all. You're not going to be able to do this in 7 minutes. So that's totally not true at all. So there's just no way. So that's the other problem I have. It's not really the 7-minute rotator cuff solution. You might start out doing a couple exercises under 7 minutes. By the time you progress through the routines, there's just no way. So those are the two main problems. The book is old. There's a few better exercises out there now that are safer, especially for your supraspinatus, was the most frequently torn rotator cuff muscle. And then also the routines they just take you a long time. Not that you won't necessarily get better if you do these, but you just don't have to do as much, and there are safer exercises. For instance, the other book I know of that's pretty good, there is another book called Treat Your Own Rotator Cuff, and the author also wrote this book, which is a more updated book, The 6-Minute Torn Rotator Cuff Solution for Seniors. I don't know what it is about all these minutes, by Jim Johnson, PT. So basically, and you can really kind of ignore the for seniors, because basically an athlete, you could put this in the hands of an Olympic athlete and they would literally get a lot from this book as well. This book came out, I think, last year, so it has a little bit more updated stuff. Part one, so what exactly is the rotator cuff? Like the 7-minute rotator cuff solution, it tells you what the rotator cuff is, what it does. Here again, a lot of great pictures in this book. Part two is answers you need to know. So the other thing I like about this book is that if you do tear your rotator cuff, you're going to have a lot of questions that might not be answered in the 7-minute rotator cuff solution. And there are updated answers as well that are in this book. So for instance, you might tear it and you're like, well, wait a minute now, I think I got a rotator cuff tear. What are the symptoms? And this is a very evidence-based book. There's nothing presented in this book that there aren't studies to back it up. And they quote the studies like almost literally every paragraph. Are there any arm maneuvers that indicate I might have torn my rotator cuff? So they'll show you that. Where exactly does it tear at? Are there different kinds of rotator cuff tears? I have a torn rotator cuff tear and I'm in a lot of pain. I need surgery, right? Well, not necessarily. Here again, evidence-based book. They went through all the studies where they take people with torn rotator cuffs, they measure the tear size, and then they also run like a pain scale. And so they see, is there any correlation, between tear size and pain levels? Well, not necessarily, because you can find actually a lot of people walking around with good-sized tears that don't have any pain at all. So there are asymptomatic rotator cuff tears. Likewise, there are people with small tears that are in a lot of pain. So just because you're in a lot of pain and you have a torn rotator cuff, surgery is by far your only answer. Not by far your own answer. What will happen if I just leave my rotator cuff tear alone? Well, good question. So if you have a rotator cuff tear, well, what if I don't do anything to it? Will it just get better on its own? Here again, they go over natural history studies. Basically, this is where you take a group of people with untreated rotator cuff tears and you follow them for like 5 or 10 years. And then what happens to them? Do they get better, same, worse? So it'll answer those questions in a very evidence-based manner. How does exercise compare to surgery when it comes to treating my torn rotator cuff? So people want to know that. They tear their rotator cuff. Well, can I just do some exercises? Only way you're going to answer that question, evidence-based medicine, is going through all the randomized controlled trials. And that the randomized controlled trial is the highest form of proof in medicine that a treatment's actually effective. If you want to prove something's effective, you do a randomized controlled trial. So here again, this book went through all the randomized controlled trials that compared exercise to surgery, and that'd be where you say take 100 people with a torn rotator cuff, and 50 you randomly send to surgery, and the other 50 you randomly assign to exercise program. And then you follow them for 6 weeks, 6 months, for years. You find out who does better in the long run. Come to find out, and a very quite consistent finding, whether you do surgery or whether you do a good exercise program, you're going to end up in the same place. So, and that's according to the latest research, like this one here, 2019. Anyway, so the third part is the exercises. Basically, there's a beginning, intermediate, advanced. So there's 3 different levels. Some people have an acute tear. They can hardly move their arm. They're going to give you some real low-level exercises. And some people have a small tear, not really hurting that bad, kind of nagging. Well, then there's an intermediate or advanced program. So here again, now, so can we say 6 minutes? Well, this book, actually this book can be done. I've actually tried it. You can do it in 6 minutes or less. Actually, some days less than 6 minutes. Because some days it's just you do mainly stretching. And here it is laid out in schematic form. Now, you don't do a bunch of sets. And this book will tell you why. I think it quoted 5 or 6 randomized controlled trials where they'd compare 1 set of an exercise to 3 sets of an exercise. And basically, according to those randomized controlled trials, 1 set is as good as 3 sets. So, not that you can't get strong doing 3 sets of an exercise, but if you can get as strong doing 3 sets with 1 as opposed to 3, why do 3 sets? So anyway, this book's not into multiple sets. Basically, it gives you the exercise. Have you do 1 set to failure for each strengthening exercise, and then it has some stretching exercises. So yeah, this book actually can be done in 6 minutes. So that's the thing I like about it. So yeah, there's kind of a comparison between 2 of the best ones I see out there. If you have a torn rotator cuff, basically, I mean, this one I go for because it's updated and includes some safer exercises. This one, good resource. Some of the information's still good, but just know that if you do it, it's over 3 decades old. So there you go. So anyway, good luck.